in life at another point, you finally found your way back, no? Because, well, you did your bachelor in chemical engineering, but for what I understand, your area of expertise is in finances. Just to give a bit of background, so I understand you have around 40 years of experience working in different countries, different industries, doing different roles. You have been in startups. I don't know if you create your own business as well. So nowadays, teaching teaching in different institutions or universities. So yeah, it's very interesting. How did you get to the finance world, and what can you tell us about your experience in different countries or companies?
Yeah, no, look, it's good to reflect, you know, like this sort of exercise makes you reflect as well. And I try to do that often and try to map out the pathways that I took. And I sort of summarize it now in this way, that I've done a lot of different functional things like engineering. I did the marketing course, right?
Yep.
I've worked in export business type strategy. I've studied studied in the social community services, non-profit, that sort of area, and then volunteering work in that area. So the beauty is, I really value this thing. I'm a big, strong advocate of not being a total narrow specialist. That's me. Like if I was a doctor, I don't know if I'd last long, because you'll always stay a doctor. You know what I mean? You may progress to be working in a hospital, then you may have your own practice, you may become a specialist in a certain field. Well, guess what? You're narrowing it even more. I mean, I've got friends who are gynecologists, who are specialists in bone structure, that sort of thing. So that's all they do. And I'm not that type of person. I'm a believer that you can have more expertise or education in certain fields, right? But you've got to combine, have a variety, and you can pull great ideas and great value, the good and the bad you see in other areas, and you can combine them and twist them and shape them to your particular problem or issue or what you want to achieve. And that's why I try to do that all the time. So I'm blessed that I started with engineering. I went into marketing. I then tried different industries, working in the fruit and veg export industry. That traveled a lot. So then I met all the different nationality, 40 countries we used to export to. Okay, so
which countries did you work in?
Oh, well, it's right across Europe. We had suppliers and markets in Europe, Japan, plenty of times in Japan, China, Shanghai, not Vietnam. We went to Saudi Arabia, the Emirates. We didn't do anything in Africa, but we then went to America, North America, Canada. So it's North America, Canada, Japan, Asia, Malaysia. I did a lot of work, Singapore, in export and consulting, and then Europe. So before I got into consulting and in more business strategy and more entrepreneurial and freelancing, I did a lot of travel. So excited me because I like people. I like learning from cultures and talking to them. Like in Japan, when they're a great culture. I love the food. They are very strict and very focused sort of country. And look what they did after the war. They invented all the processes for manufacturing, lean manufacturing and time-based efficiencies. And they dominated the auto industry.
Toyota,
electronics industry. They set all that up, and because that's the way the country operated and looked at their skills and their mind. When I traveled and worked there, I could see that. And they became world leaders. But you know what? They've fallen behind. And the reason, I believe, is that not physical things. They were good at the mechanical, physical, manufacturing, that sort of putting things together. Software, because of the internet, started to dominate the world. Yeah, software now drives everything, platforms, IT,
Yeah.
all those, that drives a lot of things. They lost that. They couldn't dominate the software industry. So America, China, a few other countries, Israel to a degree. So they've bounced and owned the software industry, not the tangible hardware type. So I think Japan then fell back a little bit because they haven't succeeded in, well, can you tell me, you don't hear of many companies or anything that comes from there, Microsoft, all those platforms, all they come from America basically, and some from China. So they lost their advantage.
Yeah, for what I understand with Japan, they did so well during I don't know, a couple of decades ago. They dominated different areas near China and other places. World War II and happened, and then they did so well during the companies, but they had different issues, and I think they are still recovering from that. Their population aged, so they didn't have young people. They have been recovering, but so that's about Japan. Because you have been in contact with so many other different cultures. You mentioned that you like learning from different cultures, and that's excellent. Did you see any other difference regarding Israel people you mentioned, or different countries around the world?
Look, when it comes, I think business and their personal thing are closely linked. So how people respond in their personal lives, you and me, the way we are, their culture, the way we're brought up, and our interaction with people, it filters through to business, and then it takes a business looking shape in its own way, I think. So in America, I mean, I still believe Australian management, middle to senior, they're not good managers. I think Australian managers, look, they don't think enough and then quickly put whatever they're supposed to do and take action on it. They're not critical enough thinkers in an overall sense. They're too narrow, and they look at themselves a bit more. They're very much career driven personally, compared to Americans are too, but they don't make decisions. They don't think. They don't take risk. They're less risk avert to Americans. Americans are loud. They bullshit. I used to travel in America, and the bloody Yanks. You can't. They don't shut up. They love themselves. They talk at the best, But you know what? They're very entrepreneurial, and one of the reasons is risk. And I'm fascinated with risk management in business and in our own lives, because risk is not just the one, something will go good or bad. Risk, I think, is a bigger issue that goes to different areas of our business and our personal lives. And COVID brought out a different dimension of risk, and their responses to risk. So I've learned a lot about. Go on.
Do you have any memories that you felt like, oh, I'm taking a big risk here in my personal life or my career?
Yeah, look,
when did you feel that you were taking a risk?
My thing with risk back in the old, you learned a lesson. I took a lot of risk. I took a lot of risk.
What was the lesson?
I was a risk taker without knowing it.
Yeah.
And because I took uncalculated risk. There is a difference now, and you learn when you get old, and you learn from your bad more than your good. But I still believe now that the best solution is your own level of calculated risk. Don't just, it doesn't matter, just do it, and because that's what I did. And look, that's fine, but you've got to be able to deal with the consequences, because
Yeah.
failure will come a lot, whatever you define failure, will come a lot quicker with that. That's just a dynamic law of physics, you know, like probability and all that mathematical physics, probability of the universe. So I was a lot
Yeah.
more, you know, being young and everything else. And you think, oh, well, you're smart enough, maybe you can think, you're still fit and you're educated. What can go wrong? And if it does, you get up again and do it again. And
Perfect. So what happened that you have in mind? Was it because in your own business or as a startup? How did you take that risk? If you want to give us a bit more
yeah,
context to
I
and
think,
what were the consequences?
yeah, I think you should, you know, you can just do things and then you build the business as you, it's, they say, riding the bike, building the bike while you're riding it. The old saying,
Okay.
which means you build your business as you go. And that's fine. I think that's what it is. There's a little bit more planning when you've got other people involved, because you can't run a business on your own. I'm not the one that can do everything on their own and manage people. I thought I could, but I need a team around me, core team, because my skills aren't, you know, I haven't got skills in all three areas that are good enough. And I found that.
Which three areas?
Well, I think the money part, the managing the money aspects, the funding.
Yeah, of course.
It's got nothing to do with accounting, whatever. I'm not. I mean, I teach I teach a subject in the finance area, but it's not really a finance subject. Like I'm not an accountant or a finance person. I've got enough understanding and I learned a lot more, but there are people who look after the finance part, and there are people who look after the sort of people, operational, the day-to-day things. They're good at day-to-day organizing and things like this and repetitive stuff. And then the third part, I suppose, is someone who just thinks and comes up with ideas, tries things, presents options or ideas and says, well, give this a try. What about this? Why don't you move that? A bit of a all around the place. So, and I'm
So
more like that.
Those three people, the finance part, the person with the
operations part, and the thinking strategy. Yeah. So
right. What was your role? Which role did you all of three?
No, not all three. Well, look, no, I like the strategy, organizing ideas, getting things done. I like people, so that's fine. But it's different when in business you've got to be repetitive. You've got to have systems in place. I like to design the systems, but I'm not that keen to manage them.
Yeah. Okay.
There's that difference. That's what I meant by the people, the process of systems management. And I suppose the most successful combination of that, and I didn't realize that till after, it wasn't designed to be like that. But when I started the consulting company, Channel Marketing Decisions, right?
Yeah.
Which was a new field of marketing. It was only a little bit was talked about in terminology of channels to market, mainly in the IT industry overseas and here. And when I was doing the franchising part, we did channels like dealers and agents and franchisees, you know, those sort of channels. You know, that's what mainly you went through third parties. But then I saw the internet coming, and I saw the phone telemarketing, sending letters out, sending telemarketing by email, by phone. Then the internet came, and I go, shit, they're all totally new channels. They're gonna devastate the old channels. So there's got to be another channel opportunity. So I came up with Channel Marketing Decisions, and we were going to combine the offline and online, the direct and indirect, and provide a total solution to companies. So I contacted, I bumped into a guy who used to work in the same franchise consultancy company that I did, but I never met him. He was a little bit before my time, but we had a mutual friend, so we touched base as I left, or I might have left, I think. And I told him the idea, and he goes, "Oh." So he said, I didn't even know him much or whatever. We clicked, we got on, so that's fine. And so we started the company, had a few other people. Then we brought a third person in who was a Bachelor of Business and Commerce, an English guy who lived in Australia from Perth. And I knew him from a friend, but I didn't know him well. He came in, so it worked out at the end. It was very successful before I left and sold out because,
Oh, you sold out. Cool.
The last guy was the one who was looking after all the finances and doing other interesting things that the other two didn't have any skills in. The original partner that I contacted, he was good at research and organizing, and he was happy to do the same thing, like without me knowing. And here I am, I was free to do it. But it wasn't by design, it just happened. And then later I realized that sort of fitted that model a bit more.
Excellent. So we are talking probably beginnings of the 2000s, and how many people were involved in the operations of the
back in 1990,
business?
roughly 1990.
Wow.
I was well before the time because
you guys were right in the moment.
Yeah, well, we sort of pioneered the multi-channel marketing industry that everybody teaches and does and talks about. I mean, it's amazing the articles I still read today from business people, from McKinsey's consulting companies. And you know what? They're not writing anything new. They're writing what we had back in the 1990, 2000s. I'm telling you, I'm not bragging.
Haven't changed that much.
Yeah, look, it has. Technology has just brought a lot of new channels to it, social media channels. But the principles and what they're saying, the language in a lot of ways, it's not dissimilar. We were using the same things and telling businesses the same. Harvey Norman, yeah?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, back then, Harvey Norman, he had a franchise model with his stores, right? And we went in to see what was going on. We were talking a few times, meetings, what channel from the channel side. So we proposed that he ought to be combining his stores with email marketing, setting up websites, have a commercial contact on that site. The whole thing was going to change. He's got to start combining and using technology and the channels available to expand, to contact, to be in touch with the customer in different ways with different needs as things going on. And you know what? Yeah, we spent about half a year with him off and on talking and presenting. And, he said, at the end, he said, nah, that's all bullshit. I'm sticking to my retail shops.
Hey, Ted, so we were talking about the business, your startup. You made a successful collaboration with your two coworkers. So thinking now from that time or about your experience, what lesson do you get for yourself or what would you recommend for people starting a business company? What were the difficulties, or was everything successful?
Oh, look, there's a lot of things, and but I think the number one is people. You've got to look at your own honest way, and then you've got to bring people around you, whether they're shareholders or part of the business, or whether you just they're on site and you pay them. They're two different. That's a different issue, but if you're assuming you bring people into the business to kick it off, and a lot of startups are with 2 people or 3 or 4.
Yes.
Some are friends, but mainly they're strangers, or I don't know, and whatever. So assuming that's the model. So people, I think, you've got to have the right capabilities and personality. I mean, and that's hard to judge. You can feel it in your head and your heart, but you've also then got to say, well, what do we need? What could we need? Like those three things. We need IT, we need HR, and we need marketing or something. We need those different types of skills, but that's only one layer. That's the functional side. The other side is, can you work together and can you trust each other? You've got to trust, so you've got no problems that they're doing anything wrong, not wrong, but you can say anything, you can do anything with them. They're not going to get upset. They're not going to screw anything, because it happens. I mean, I've seen it myself. So if you've got trust and then loyalty to each other, so it's all those combinations. They're different to having a bit of a skill of what you're interested in. So, and do what you're interested in. Don't do what you're not. Find someone who can do that, and then you two have to work together. But managing any relationship is hard. It's easier for me to say it or write it, or you read all the books, and that's beautiful stuff. I love reading stuff like that, but it's so hard to do.
You just know it until you do it.
Yeah. But the second one is money.
Okay, money. Yeah, let's talk about money. I love to talk about money.
Funding.
Everything that it means. Yes.
You've got to have the capital, and you've got to. The thing that it's don't be undercapitalized. I was in a food business before the global financial crisis came. I was making ready meals. So I don't know if I've got it here or not. Probably have it. Anyhow, no, I haven't. I don't know where it is. Anyhow, I was making ready meals. Again, well before the time. No, I haven't got them here. I just thought of them. You buy them in packets and you can heat them up. The ready meals you get in supermarkets.
Oh, meals for, okay. Like you go to the 7-Eleven, there are some meals that are ready. You just need to put it in the microwave.
Yeah, in trays.
That's it.
In trays and all that, so you can get a curry or a lasagna or.
It wasn't there in that time.
Yeah, there were.
No, it was not that popular.
It wasn't very popular, and so
now it is. Must have been a good idea.
Again, I was pioneering that because I set up a name called Instant Chef.
Yeah.
So
good.
Instant Chef. Every freezer should have them because we had them frozen to start off with. So that was the pitch. But look, I learned very quickly. That's fine. We did design. I designed a few, and a friend of mine, a good friend, came in as a partner. But we were missing a third person. I think that was the lesson afterwards. But anyhow, so we designed all those 4 different meals, all the packaging design and everything else, and started manufacturing them through contacts. But the problem in that industry, it's very money intensive. It's cost intensive, and you need a lot of money. So
So what's the money?
I don't know. We put in about $1.5 million, right? But it just wasn't enough. We didn't. How would you know? So we went for 3 years developing and growing and selling, but I wanted to get to an outsourcing model because I sort of had a back feeling that you couldn't continue this yourself. It's just too hard to expand. You need to partnerships. Yeah, that's another. You've got to have partnerships and outsource the manufacturing, and you focus on what you do well. The selling, the marketing, the PR, like managing the brand, market expansion, product development, because there were companies making stuff. So I started talking to a number of different companies and starting to put a plan together for the next phase, and bring a few investors in, silent investors, shareholders, right? And I was in discussion, and then the global financial crisis hit Australia.
2008? Was it that one?
Yeah, the main one, yeah. 2008 and 9. And
Devastating for everything, for everybody.
yeah, the investors, they all went in their own directions thinking Australia's going to have a major recession like the United States. So everything changed for 6 months before people said, oh, well, maybe it's not as bad, whatever, you know. And so so everybody ran for the goods. And I was really on my own at that stage because the other partner went back to his own business for a while. And again, I didn't have the resources and I thought, no. So I actually just sold everything out kept the brand, okay?
Yep.
Kept the intellectual property, which I've still got,
Yes.
but sold all the equipment and the licensing of the products, the meal thing to a pasta company here in Melbourne.
So let's say that you got the exit, but a good one for the conditions of the moment. It could have been a
could be
total
worse,
loss.
could be zero.
Yeah.
Could have
Yeah,
shut
exactly.
the door, sell the equipment for nothing, you know, put a few cents. Because we're working with this pasta company on a number of things like sauces and things like that. So we had a relationship, and thank goodness. I mean, look, they got a bargain in one way, because you do that's the other thing, when you have to make decisions, you're out of your control a little bit. So look, the funds, you're undercapitalized, okay? And
Yeah.
watch your cash flow. You needed to have the accounting systems in place. My partner was doing that, and then when he went back to his business, it sort of fell apart. So you needed to know where the cash is, the cash flow, which we studied a little bit in the first few weeks.
Yes.
But you know, again, unless you got the person that you can trust that does it, if you have to do everything, you tend to leave certain things to second and third or fourth, and we all focus on the things we love all the easiest. So we're humans, right? So that was a lesson, because you started something new. It was successful. We had BP involved in distributing through all their outlets. The product design, the graphic work, the packaging, you know, it was all exciting stuff, making them, sending them out. And we used to go direct. So we had a direct model. We went to supermarkets, didn't really want us at that stage, the big ones. And supermarkets can be very ruthless in their supply relationships. So I said, stick it. I'll go to like the IGAs, BP food outlets, for instance, petrol ones. And I said, listen, I'll go straight to the consumer. So I contacted people in their companies, in their workplaces, and made a deal with the company that if people wanted to order at work, so all of a sudden a company may have 20 people working there. So all of a sudden I had a captured market of 20, and they ordered by email. Here we go, because the phone and all that stuff wasn't as good as it is now, right? So the apps weren't around. So they placed the orders by email, electronic channel. Okay, we got it, and then we delivered to one place to cut logistical travel and time, and all of a sudden we delivered to 20 people, not one household.
Yeah.
And then they took them home, and then they could order next time around, whether it's for eating at work, or taking it home to eat later on. And the fire brigade, all those stations in Victoria, I delivered to all the fire brigade stations. And then I went vending machine.
Oh, vending machines. Okay.
Frozen. No one was, very few people were doing frozen stuff, usually just drinks and refrigerated. So I got a frozen vending machine from the US, and a company was trialing electronic remote to see whether it's empty or not, and you can do it on your screen. So in the office, we could see that machine was empty on one of the product lines. So they were trialing that. So we brought the two technologies, frozen vending and monitoring, so that we can send a driver out to replenish it. So we pioneered that with Australia Post.
Oh,
All
okay.
their factories in Dandenong and Mulgrave, because they had a lot of workers there. They had canteen, like eating place, but when the canteen wasn't operating, they were happy to have these machines so people can eat in between and different shifts. So we pioneered that back then as well as part of the exercise. So as you can see, I was branching out and trying to change and go with the new trends, new channels, new approaches. Supermarkets didn't want me, I don't want them. Well, how else can I do things? You know, because and they were all trial and errors. That vending thing was really interesting. And, you know, we had our whole branded instant chef vending machine, all branded up nicely. And
wow, Ted, that's really interesting. I can see you guys had quite a big operation. It lasted a couple of years, as you mentioned. All the difficulties that it has to grow a company. Sometimes we think that we are selling more, so it's good. But to grow the operation, it involves more money, as you mentioned. So, well, it is very interesting. You were way ahead of all the new trends that we believe are new. But also, Ted, okay, so that was a bit of that part from your working experience and also a startup. I now understand you have been in non-for-profit, or you like these ideas about sustainability, non-for-profit activities. So why don't you tell us a bit more about that area? How do you get into the teaching, and what do you feel? How do you feel nowadays?
All right, well, I suppose that's the other side. I just by reading, and I don't know what popped in a few years ago now, non-profits around the world, but in Australia, most of them relied on their revenues from government handouts. They did a little bit of fundraising themselves, but a lot of them were government grants. And I'm going, the governments don't want to keep giving money like that. Their model's got to change. Their thinking will change. It's not enough to sustain the operations of non-profits, and they're at the mercy of the government or the council, whether it's local government, because a lot of local governments in Australia give grants out to the non-profits in their council, right? And then it's state government and then federal. So you can have relationships with the whole three of them. And that 70-80% of their funds came from those government sources. And I'm going, it's not sustainable, really. They've really got to get their own money or balance it a bit. Yeah, or grab a few things, of course. So fundraising, getting grants from individuals is hard and it's still a problem. So I said, you've got to get it from business, and business has to support non-profits. And you know what? Non-profits need the skill of where business people have. They've got the people, the intelligence, the models, the experience of how to run. And you know what? Non-profits are just another business. They do make profits, Sergio, but they haven't got shareholders to give it out to, or they put it back in their business. So a non-profit that doesn't make a profit is a shit non-profit, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
It's just the terminology. So I said, we need to have businesses supporting. And then I started researching, and I find that 70% of businesses in Australia may support or do something for non-profits. I'm going, what? That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I did more research, and yes, you only hear about the big players now, like the banks, NAB, BP, and that's the sustainability industry that we know now, the corporate social responsibility that we're going to study in a couple of weeks. And they set up massive departments. My niece used to work with the NAB bank, and their whole corporate social responsibility, sustainability, diversity, all that sort of stuff, crap. They had 300 people working there. So it's big business.
Wow.
Because
Yes.
being good to the community is good for the business, and that's the model. And I believe in that. I've got no problems that they benefit from it. Some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't be benefiting." That's bullshit. It's got to be a two-way stream, a three-way stream. You got to give and take anything in life, in your personal
Needs to be
relationship
sustainable.
with business. So government gives. That's part of that model. Not only is you rely on the money, but it's a one-way stream in most cases, and you've got to have interaction. So I thought, no, that's the. So I sort of started designing a platform where I can bring the companies that are doing good to showcase them, who they're doing good to, the non-profits, and then you would log in as the social conscious consumer, you and me, who are interested in knowing a little bit more about the non-profits and supporting the businesses that helping them. Okay, so it was going to be still designing it, but it's just a hobby. It's a part-time thing.
I think it's really great, and that's where nowadays everything is going to. I think I told you last time about this book called Impact. I don't remember exactly the name of the author, but what he basically says is that he also talks about risk, that it was in the like, I don't know, like 100 years ago that it was started, but he also says that for us as a business company, we have been focusing not in the right currency, to say it that way, because businesses usually have been looking for profit, but those profits are usually not thinking about the nature, about the well-being of people. Companies just want to be alive and have money back to back them in difficult times. So what he says is that now the system should work as an impact, which means according to what companies do well in their communities and to the environment. So companies should be measuring impact, and sometimes the difficulties between the government and the non-for-profit organizations and the people is that they give this money, but sometimes they don't even know where is it spent or how. So I think by what you say, for creating that space to help them all be together, it's just a great idea. So I really think nowadays where everything is going is there. And as a consumer, people will start demanding that. So companies who don't get into that game will start to be left behind. I think that's kind of the position there.
Oh, look, I'm a big, so I volunteer here and there for on the board of different non-profits, and I come in and out, but I'm not on the board of one now. I just volunteer in a community learning center in Richmond, because I did some projects for them. So I've done a few projects in a non-profit sector with another consultant that I'm do projects with. Well, he's the one that does it. I join him on certain projects. So we did that around New South Wales and Victoria. So I just want to volunteer and contribute a bit more, and then learn from being inside those businesses, the non-profits, so you can get some practical experience, not just the theory behind it. So that's a personal thing for me. I'm a big advocate that at the end, they all should be working together. So, social enterprise, you've heard of that, have you? Social enterprises, those companies?
No, I haven't, but do
have a
some
look
research.
at it. Have a look at social enterprise. Okay, so what's the water company? Think, is it? No, top of my head. Anyway, people who start up a lot of them are startups. They start up a company and it's they give back to the community. It's a social purpose companies and whatever. Okay, so there's a lot of that trend happening, but I thought of it differently. I'm going, you know what? Every company, instead of being a social enterprise, because everybody's got different, when you look at it, everybody's got different definitions of it. Every country's got different definitions of it. It's still a mess, but my belief is that every company ought to be social enterprising.
Okay.
Within the company. That's, to me, every company ought to have social enterprising. So, yeah, I suppose they all are social enterprise to one degree or another, whether they're 100% or only 20%, it doesn't matter. But if every company socially enterprises within their business model, and then go out to communities, and well, then you've got a very powerful impact and result, because you can measure it, you've got expertise, you've got a little bit more money, and you're sharing skills and capabilities. And to me, that should explode. And
excellent.
So every company, to me, if you're not, well, you're just there for the money. Okay, fine. Not everybody wants to get involved with any of that. But a lot of companies do a little bit, and they should be proud, and they're social enterprising, whether they give money, share their people, donate, whatever they do, volunteer. That's all part of the model.
Great.
UK are very big on
it. Hey, Ted, well, we are getting to nearly sort of the end of this great conversation. Just to wrap it up a bit, so how important is it for anyone to volunteer, to offer their help inside their community, any role? Yeah, how important has it been for you, and what would you recommend about volunteering for people?
Oh, look, I think everybody should volunteer, but everybody should try to give back a little bit, try to make the world better. So, you know, whatever skills you've got, you got to reach out, because these people are doing really good. They've got they're different to me. I mean, they're working in a non-profit. Look, some of them are gets very political. That's the other thing I found. A lot of these non-profits are actually more political and more ruthless than even business. You know, the big corporates. I've been inside there and the board, and in and out, and they can be ruthless, and they can, whatever. But you know what? The non-profits can be just as bad as them. They have that characteristic. So it's an interesting issue. So there is something in there that's business related and competitive, and everything else. But whatever your skills are, it's time, money, or expertise. You can decide what you want to do.
There you go. Time, money, expertise. You can share any of them.
You should, and they're the three things that you've got to consider if you're starting a business. And just to finish off, because time's running out, time is the other component, I suppose, that has caught up with me. I didn't appreciate the value of timing, back then. And I was before my time on a couple of ventures, and one succeeded, the others lost a bit of ground for other reasons as well. But that's where you learn. That's fine. But timing is important, managing your own time anyhow, but the timing in the marketplace, looking at the trends. So the things we're doing in 403 are interesting from me. It's not an accounting finance. I look at it as bringing a lot of different factors together and going, what do I see happening with the economy? Unemployment in Europe, the interest rates, exchange rates. These companies, the performing industries are going down. Some are grabbing this up. And technology is innovative there. They're lagging over there. So I bring all those together because I'm trying to make better decisions. I'm trying to live now more and more what I think the 403 subject's about. So maybe I'm steering into that direction. So I'm trying to say to you, forget the accounting and numbers, look at the performance of that company. And you know what, when you get asked the questions, there's in A2 Milk, it says, what are the strengths and weaknesses you can pick up?
Yeah.
It doesn't say, oh, how are their numbers looking? Does it? You've got to then apply those numbers. That's the easy part. The hard part is to put those numbers into action, make a decision, do it well, achieve whatever you want to achieve. And that's the difficult part. Those sort of questions get answered the worst in any test, because people don't know how to calculate and they put it down and go, oh, it's a high one or it's a low one number.
Yes.
What about the performance? What does it mean? What could they do? Did you have a look at their strategy and see whether that's satisfying it, for instance, and tell me a little bit about it. That's the end result. That's what you learn, the process and the action and moving forward. So it doesn't matter what data you work from,
Excellent. Hey, Ted, well.
Okay, that's it. I've got to go too.
Right, just finishing. Let's say this hypothetical situation, you are in front of 1,000 or million people. You have one message that you want to give to these people on a personal level or professional level. What would you like to share with them, for example? Looking back in your life experience, personal, professional, anything, something that you can share. Let's say you are in front of millions of people and they can get that message and improve their lives in some way. What would you tell us if you have something in mind?
I think, well, I don't know. In summary, I would say think, act, and do it again, but try to do it in the same way. Don't wait too long between those things. So to me, it's a continuous circle of thinking, acting, looking, and doing it again. And you've got to work out the cycle of how much gap is there, how much thinking you want to do, how much doing you want to do, when do you want to do it, how much you're going to review and then take it and make a change and do it again. Because nothing stays the same. Even if a great thing turns up, you've got to review it and then change it and do it again. And you know what I mean? When I say again, you've got to go back into the cycle and keep working on it. So it's like a continuous spinning wheel, the raffle wheels, when you spin the old wheels and you get a prize if you get a number. Well, when the wheel starts to slow down, I think you should always go give it another spin, because don't let it stop. Don't let it stop, because it starts all over again. Yeah. That's sort of approach.
All right, that's perfect. So think, do it,
and review and do it again.
Yeah. Sometimes we think too much and we take too long to take action. Sometimes we don't do it again. So, well, it has been great to have you here, Ted. Thank you very much for sharing all these experiences, for sharing your life and lessons. We enjoyed so much. So thank you. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the opportunity. Good luck with that.